In today's video, we're diving into a massive issue that's shaking up the US farming industry. Canada's recent moves have sent shockwaves through American agriculture, and the ripple effects are being felt across the nation. If you're a farmer, or even if you're just curious about how this impacts the food you eat, stick with us as we break down the background, recent twists, and the potential fallout of this ongoing trade drama. Let's get into it. To really understand what's going on right now, we need to hit the rewind button and take a look at the long history of trade between the US and Canada. These two countries have been deeply intertwined economically for years, with agriculture at the heart of the relationship. Think about it. US farmers have long relied on Canada as one of their biggest markets for products like grains, livestock, and dairy. On the flip side, Canadian farmers depend on the vast American market to sell their goods. This partnership was solidified through major trade agreements like NAFTA and later the USMCA. These deals made it easier for goods to flow freely across the border, benefiting both sides. But hold on, things have taken a dramatic turn. Let's talk about what's happening now. The trade tension between the US and Canada? It's escalating. The US has slapped a 25% tariff on a range of Canadian goods, including agriculture, and that's shaking things up. This was part of a broader plan by the US to protect American industries and lower the trade deficit. But here's the kicker. Canada didn't take it lying down. They hit back with their own tariffs on American products like corn, soybeans, and beef. And now the entire farming community is feeling the heat. So who's feeling the pain from these tariffs? Well, let's break it down. Dairy farmers. Whoa, they've been hit hard. American dairy farmers have depended on Canada for years to buy their products. But now, with these tariffs, exporting dairy to Canada has become way more expensive, which means less demand and lower prices for American farmers. For many dairy farms, it's become a financial nightmare. Many are struggling just to stay afloat, trying to make ends meet while watching their futures hang in the balance. Grain farmers, especially those growing corn and soybeans, are also caught in the crossfire. Canada has been a huge buyer of American grains, but now, the retaliatory tariffs are throwing a wrench in that. Prices have dropped, and farmers are stuck with surplus crops they can't sell. This isn't just bad news for their bottom line. It's bad news for the entire industry. With low commodity prices and fierce competition from other countries, these farmers are feeling squeezed on all sides. And let's not forget about livestock farmers. Beef and pork producers are feeling the sting as the cost to export livestock to Canada skyrockets. This drives down demand and sends prices into a tailspin. Imagine running a business where your revenues are plummeting and your costs are skyrocketing at the same time. That's the reality for many livestock farmers right now. Some are even having to make the tough call to downsize or scramble to find new markets. But wait, this isn't just about the farmers themselves. There's a bigger picture here. Small farms versus big ag, the divide is growing. The impact isn't felt equally across the board. While large corporate farms may have the resources to weather this storm, smaller family-owned farms are really getting hit hard. Many of these small farms just don't have the cushion to absorb the extra costs from tariffs. As a result, we're seeing an acceleration of farm consolidation, where bigger operations snap up struggling ones. That's a big shift that could reshape the agricultural landscape for good. And on top of that, there's the human side of things. Farmers are already facing enough stress from unpredictable weather, market instability, and now this trade conflict. The emotional toll is real. Families and entire communities are living with uncertainty. The financial pressures are mounting, and the mental health struggles among farmers are becoming a huge concern. This is about more than just numbers. It's about people's lives. So what happens next? Well, the uncertainty could have ripple effects beyond the farming world. If these tariffs stay in place, it could send shockwaves through entire local economies. Local businesses that rely on the agriculture sector, like equipment suppliers, local processors, and even restaurants, will start to feel the crunch. As farmers struggle, entire communities that depend on agriculture could find themselves in economic decline. And here's where things get interesting. The world is watching. Other countries may see this tension as an opportunity. China, Mexico, the EU, they could step in to scoop up the gap left by reduced trade between the US and Canada. That means new opportunities for farmers, but also new challenges. Adjusting to new markets isn't always smooth sailing. There's also a risk that American agriculture could become more vulnerable to global market volatility. Let's talk tech for a second. As farmers scramble to survive, many are looking to technology to help. Precision agriculture, for example, helps farmers be more efficient with water, fertilizer, and labor, essential for boosting profits in tough times. But here's the problem. These technologies can be expensive, and with trade uncertainty looming large, farmers are hesitant to make those kinds of investments. It's a tricky spot. They need to innovate to stay competitive, but the financial strain is making that harder than ever. The long-term outlook? This trade dispute could reshape the agricultural industry in ways we can't fully predict. If things don't improve, we might see a restructuring of US and Canadian agricultural practices. In the worst-case scenario, farmers could be pushed out of business, and we could see a shift in global trade patterns that leaves North American farmers struggling to catch up. But on the flip side, there's also the chance for new opportunities. Countries are watching closely, and if the US and Canada can hammer out a better deal, it could reshape the future of North American agriculture in a more sustainable, forward-thinking way. Bottom line, this trade conflict is far from over, and its impacts are still unfolding. Farmers will continue to face tough choices: innovate or stay the course, fight for their market share or explore new opportunities. The uncertainty is real, but one thing is for sure: this situation will define the future of farming for years to come. Certainly. Let's delve even further into the complexity of the trade tensions between Canada and the United States, exploring both the immediate and long-term consequences for the agricultural sector, trade relations, and the global economy. While the focus of these trade tensions has largely been on Canada and the United States, the effects are also being felt on a much broader, global scale. The agricultural sector is a key component of the global economy, and disruptions to the trade of essential goods such as grains, meats, and dairy products can have ripple effects that reach far beyond North America. Countries around the world, particularly those in the European Union and Asia, are closely monitoring the situation as it could influence global food supply chains, commodity prices, and trade agreements. The trade imbalances and tariff battles between Canada and the US are symptomatic of larger economic trends. Nations are rethinking their dependence on traditional trade partners, diversifying their economic engagements, and exploring new ways to protect their domestic industries from the volatility that tariffs and protectionist policies can bring. In this context, the actions Canada is taking to diversify its trade partners may act as a blueprint for other nations looking to shield their agricultural sectors from the impact of similar trade disputes. Canada's proactive response to the trade tensions with the US not only protects its agricultural interests, but also highlights a significant shift in the way global trade is conducted. By increasing exports to the European Union and China, Canada is positioning itself as a key player in the evolving global marketplace. As the world's second-largest exporter of agricultural goods, Canada's ability to adapt to new trade dynamics is crucial for maintaining its position on the global stage. This shift is also influencing how Canadian farmers approach their business models. Rather than relying on the US as their primary market, they are now forced to innovate, explore alternative markets, and embrace the potential of international trade agreements that may offer more favorable terms. These changes are reshaping how Canadian agriculture is structured, from production strategies to export logistics. Moreover, as Canada strengthens its economic ties with China, it could see a steady increase in demand for products like canola, soybeans, and other key agricultural commodities. While this new trade relationship comes with its own set of challenges, particularly regarding the political complexities of dealing with China, it offers a vital hedge against the uncertainty created by the ongoing trade war with the United States. In the United States, farmers have been bearing the brunt of the trade dispute, particularly in sectors that are heavily reliant on exports to Canada. The imposition of tariffs has led to lost markets and, in many cases, lower profits for American farmers. While the US government argues that these tariffs are necessary to level the playing field and address trade imbalances, the realities on the ground are far more complicated. The price of agricultural commodities has been volatile, and many American farmers have found themselves at the mercy of global market fluctuations. With tariffs in place, products that were once traded freely between the US and Canada are now subject to higher costs, reducing their competitiveness in international markets. Farmers in the US are now considering other export markets, but the disruption has created uncertainty, making it difficult to predict future market trends and income stability. Additionally, US farmers have voiced concerns about the long-term sustainability of this tariff-heavy approach. There are growing calls for more comprehensive trade policies that account for the interests of farmers and other stakeholders, rather than relying solely on punitive measures against trade partners. This situation could prompt political shifts in the US as lawmakers work to find solutions that better balance the needs of both the agricultural sector and broader economic interests. Both the Canadian and US governments have played critical roles in supporting their farmers during these challenging times. In Canada, financial assistance programs and subsidies have served as a buffer, helping farmers manage the economic toll of the tariffs. These measures not only provide immediate relief, but also signal to the agricultural community that the government is invested in their success. In the US, the government has introduced similar support mechanisms to help farmers cope with the negative effects of trade disruptions. Programs such as trade mitigation payments and direct financial aid have been offered to farmers whose markets have been undermined by tariffs. However, while these measures have provided short-term relief, they are not seen as a permanent solution. Many in the farming community are calling for more comprehensive reforms to ensure that farmers are not left exposed to future trade shocks. Looking ahead, the consequences of the trade tensions between Canada and the US may extend beyond just the agricultural sector. Global supply chains that depend on the free flow of goods across borders could face significant disruptions as tariffs and trade barriers increase. The agricultural industry, in particular, is highly interconnected, with countries relying on each other for access to essential commodities. As tariffs increase on Canadian goods, and vice versa, businesses that depend on these agricultural imports will be forced to reevaluate their supply chains. This could lead to shortages, delayed shipments, and higher costs for businesses, all of which would be passed down to consumers. For example, Canadian exports of dairy products to the US could be hampered by higher tariffs, leading to a shortfall of certain dairy products in the US market. Similarly, American agricultural exports to Canada could face similar challenges, impacting the availability and pricing of key goods on both sides of the border. Moreover, businesses in countries that have close trade ties with Canada and the US, such as Mexico, could find themselves caught in the crossfire of these disputes. As supply chains become more fragmented, businesses worldwide will need to become more agile, adapting to new trade routes and dealing with the logistical challenges of moving goods in a world where trade relationships are increasingly volatile. In response to the shifting landscape of global trade, many countries are looking to multilateral trade agreements as a way to secure their economic interests. These agreements, whether through regional partnerships like the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, CPTPP, or bilateral trade deals, allow nations to safeguard their access to vital markets while reducing reliance on any single trade partner. As these trade tensions continue to evolve, it's important to look at how both Canadian and American farmers are likely to respond in the coming years. On one hand, US farmers might start looking more towards the South and East for export opportunities, seeking to tap into emerging markets in Asia and Latin America. On the other hand, Canadian farmers may deepen their engagement with other Western nations, building on their relationships with the EU and China. Both sides will likely continue to advocate for policies that shield their agricultural industries from global trade volatility. Farmers, policymakers, and trade experts will need to work together to navigate this ever-changing landscape. It's clear that the era of easy trade between the US and Canada may be over, but that doesn't mean there aren't new opportunities on the horizon for those willing to adapt. The trade tensions between Canada and the US underscore a crucial truth about global economics. Trade is never static, and the balance of power is always shifting. The ability to adapt to these changes is essential for countries and industries that rely on open markets and free-flowing trade. In conclusion, Canada's strategy to diversify its trade partners, strengthen domestic support, and engage in diplomatic dialogue is a crucial model for navigating the complexities of today's global trade environment. At the same time, US farmers and government officials will need to reassess their approach to trade and develop long-term solutions that protect the agricultural sector, while promoting fair and balanced trade relations. These trade tensions may be a setback in the short term, but they also present opportunities for reinvention, collaboration, and growth. As countries around the world continue to adapt to new trade realities, the global agricultural industry will need to remain flexible, forward-thinking, and resilient to thrive in the years to come. Thank you for watching and engaging with this comprehensive analysis. If you found this content valuable, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more insightful videos on important global topics. Your thoughts are always welcome, so feel free to leave a comment below, and let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay informed and take care.